And now we begin today. Yes. Yes, indeed. Boo. Yes. Oh, itch. Yeah. Sorry, had a bit of an itch in my ear. So, today is yet another Patreon sculpt. And hello, Mark. That's our patron for today. We are going to be making his Elven Fighter Mage. Is it Elven or half Elven? Is it male or female? Alrighty. Well, we're going to go ahead and get right into getting some information from you. Number one, what kind of armor does he wear? You know, chain, plate, scale, half plate, studded leather. Chain. Okay. Full chain or chain shirt? Shirt. Okay, so. Alright, next thing is, what weapon does he use? Longsword, short sword, cutlass, rapier, saber, great sword. There's a lot of swords out there. Longsword. Okay. The next question is hair. Length and style. I don't need to know the color. I just need to know how is it long hair, going old, 80s hairband in the wind? Is it like the long skinny hair that Legolas has? Little ponytail, short buzz cut. Okay, got it. Just remember there is a 10-second or so lag between what I say and the responses I see. So, I got a couple miniatures painted. I'm not going to show them to you up close because they're just. I'm going to show them off tomorrow. Eep. Yeah. Oh. I love some paints. Oh. Normally, I have Carlton in here coming to interrupt things. Today, it's Ralph. You can tell because he's got that red collar. No. 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 This is Ralph. Ralph looks just like Carlton except he wears a red collar. Shoe. Sorry about that. Okay. So, I guess the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pop over to Dad's studio. And go to the content library, load in our basic mail. Okay, the next question I'm going to give you. Does he have any other armor besides the chain shirt? Does he have bracers? Does he have greaves? Does he have a long boots, short boots? Does he have pauldrons? Or is it just a shirt? And if anyone else is there, come on, say hi. Okay. And then, actually, there's one more final question. What kind of spell do you want him casting? I can. Frost is really hard. You really can't represent frost. The closest thing that you can really do is... Well, where did I put it? Oh, here he is. The closest thing you can do is... Oops. Is to take something like what this Dragonborn Sorcerer is casting and paint it blue. Just make it kind of generic. Just make sure that it's blue with like a white frosting tip. Okay. Well, what we're going to do now, we're going to look at the props. We've got a couple different kinds of longsword that we could give him. I'm going to kind of turn him so that you can see the swords as I load them in. Okay, so... Let's see where... Longsword, LLL. Got a lot of these. Well, first there's the Kriegsmesser. It looks like a great sword, but it's actually considered a longsword. It just is scaled a bit bigger and could actually be shrunk down a bit. Kriegsmesser is a German-style sword. Then there's the... the standard cliche longsword. There is a Celtic longsword. And I know I've done a couple other different styles of longsword. I don't remember. Oh yeah, there it is. There's longsword style too. And then, of course, there's... This would also count as a longsword in D&D. Katana. The Kriegsmesser? Do you want it full size, or do you want me to scroll it to scale it down just a little bit? As it is, I need to move it up a little this way. Shrink it down a little. Okay. What we do for that is we're just going to make sure that we move the center of the Kriegsmesser, the joint center, the green one here, to the center of his hand. You can find the bones by clicking this button right here. That lets you move the center. And then we can scale it down just a bit. That would put it at about the size of your typical longsword. Right there. How's that? And when we get into ZBrush, I'll sharpen his ear points a little. So that's that, and then for the left hand, we're going to give him his spell, which we're going to go ahead and use the Arcane Bolt, as opposed to another option would be to give him Lightning Bolt, which doesn't look so much like lightning anymore, compared to some of the things I've made recently, or the Firebolt. So let's go ahead and put that arcane bolt back in. Okay. And now we worry about the pose. So in order to do that, we're going to hide the weapons and the skirt. So, do you have any idea what kind of pose you want? Will he be more defensive, leaning away from the blast? Will he be, fighting and casting? Will his sword be down and he's just bleh? That's sort of, just in a general idea of what kind of pose you want. So the sword would be down and to the side while he's blasting, pretty much. Okay. So basically, for all intents and purposes, this guy is more Wizard of the War College than Eldritch Knight. That'd be pretty much a good way to put it. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of start with the hips. Actually, we're going to start with the hips. He's going to be leaning forward, which means he's going to side to side those hips this way a little. He's going to bend them forward just the wrong way. That way, just a bit. And then we're going to base the stance off his rear leg, which is going to go to the side a little. And twist ever so slightly. And it's also going to come forward. We're going to twist the lower leg a little bit. And then, no, not left view, front view. We're going to manipulate this foot. And try to get it to where it's close to flat as possible. Okay. Now, this leg is going to bend forward, bend back, twist a little bit. Actually, yeah, we need to bend this backwards because of the way that feet go. Bend this up and go from the front view to start tweaking feet. Okay. Now let's unbend that foot. And now we hit Control D to drop it to the... What? Oh yeah. I keep forgetting it takes into account props. So, there we go. It drops to the ground. Now we gotta tweak this foot so that it goes as close to flat as possible. And let's lower the whole thing so that he's on the ground plane. Not too much. So negative 2.4. There we go. That's almost perfect. Come back over here. Grab this. Bend it up a little bit more, just so that we can pull the leg, pull the foot down ever so slightly. There we go. And then we're gonna bend the foot. And now we go back to the perspective camera. Now the chest and the abdomen are going to twist this way, so that he's leaning into it, but he's also, you know, and then the abdomen, side to side, bend a little. Okay. And this shoulder right here. Let's go back to that. There, that shoulder is going to come forward just a little. And up a little. And now we're going to make the arcane bolt visible so you can see where it's going to end up being. And then we bend the hand and try to make it as close to parallel to the arm as we can. Yeah. Then we can take this . Bring it down kind of more in the center of the palm. We actually need to then unbend this wrist a little, because that's just way too much. So now we're going to take it and we're going to rotate it. Okay, that's good. Now we grab the shoulder and bend it up a little bit more again and forward a bit. And it's a little bit more up. Yeah, we want it to come out. Now we're going to make the Kriegsmesser visible. This is actually going to go back a bit and down a little. We're going to twist the arm and then grab the hand and go side to side so that it goes a little bit down. Now, let's make sure that it's not piercing the ground. Okay. Right hand, we can make it come down a little bit more. There. Perspective view. We need to side to side the split. And then twist the neck a little side to side a little so that he's kind of leaning into it. And there we have our basic pose. How does that look to you? Artist. For a living, I do 3D graphics. And I have books like this just lying around in my office. Encyclopedia Anatomicae. Now, it is ever so slightly almost off balance. If you don't count the energy blast, he's balanced, but that energy blast will make him feel a little off balance, a little more dynamically forward. You also have this arc that goes from the sword to the blast. And as you can see, the sword is also parallel to this leg, the blast is parallel to that leg, and the head is along this line. So we have a nice little pose. So let's go ahead and hide the Kriegsmesser, hide the blast. And it almost looks like a dance pose, you know. Stop in the name of death. I'll blow your face off. Yep. And let's go ahead and file, export. Whoops. Broadcast miniatures. No, we don't want broadcast, we want Patreon minis. New. And there we have a brief pause. What's his name? Does he have a name? No. No, 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 Ralph. No. Amarin. Like Tamarin. Yeah. Amarin body. And this is the settings I use. 100% scale is the most important part. I then hide him, make the Kriegsmesser visible. Well, now as you can see, the Kriegsmesser has a nice deep fuller down both sides. It also has what's called the nail. That's this part here that goes over the back of the hand. Now, of course, that beak is the pommel. So, file, export, Amarin Kriegs, accept. I'm going to turn off the Kriegsmesser, turn on the arcane bolt. We file, export, Amarin spell, accept. We hide the bolt, turn on the tunic skirt, and because there is some twisting involved, one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to select first this left thigh. The twist is 25.39, so we're going to take the left thigh here, twist it negative 25.39. Because real skirts and tunic bottoms and that don't twist with your leg. Jeans do to an extent, but kilts and skirts and tunics don't. This one, the right thigh has none, so we leave the right thigh as it is. And just to show you, that actually makes it fit on that left thigh better with less poke through. So let's turn him off again. File, export, Amarin. Let's call it kilt, even though it's not. Okay, now the next thing we got to do, while I'm thinking about it, no, I don't want to hide that. I want to hide this. Is we need to decide on a base. Hold on just a minute. I had said, sorry, I had a bit of an emergency. I'll be popping back out again here in another couple of minutes. But what base do you want? Obviously, you don't want the techno panels, and you probably don't want the diamond plate. So we got cobblestones, fancy tile, flat, rocky, planks, and grassy. Rocky. Okay. And of course we don't mean Sylvester Stallone. So we go back to here. File. Import. Bases. Base Rocky. And now we go back to the front view. And select the base. And one thing that we're going to do here is move it to the side and down. Then we're going to the right view and move it forward just a little, because with that blast it's going to shift our center of balance off. We also need to come down a bit. Okay, so we're going to hide your dude. File, export, Amarin base. Okay, and then pop over here. See, doesn't this look familiar? Import, no. Patreon minis, new. Amarin body. And before we do anything, gonna shrink the mouse a little, reduce the smoothing to about there, and then just kind of smooth out that area right there. It'll be covered by the... Oh, also, because we're going to be doing a shirt over top of this, we really need to smooth this out. Because chainmail does not fit like spandex. Okay. Well, hold on just a minute again. Okay, sorry about that. A lot of y'all don't know, I actually take care of my mother, who's 70 years old, and she needed some assistance. Okay, let's get back to here. We're also going to do something similar back here on the back of the shoulder for similar reasons. We don't have to worry about the bottom because it's, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and load in all the rest of it, then I'll tweak your points for you. So that's going to be append, import, and the next thing to come in actually is going to be the kilt. Append, then will come the Kriegsmesser, then will come the spell, then will come the base. Okay, frame. And there we go. There he is in ZBrush. He's already going to look quite dynamic. Now, first thing we need to do is we need to take this kilt, subdivide it at least once. We're going to now hide the sword, spell, and base. And go back in and tweak them ears. So we're going to use the move tool to do this. I'm going to shrink it down quite a bit. Okay, let's do this. Okay, there, that moves our center rotation. It's going to grab it and drag it out a bit. Yeah, we're going to do the same thing over here. It's going to grab it and drag it out a bit. Makes the ears a lot more visible on the miniature. Do you want them to have a more square jaw than your typical... Hello, Lily Moon. I'm sorry I didn't notice you earlier. Do you want him to have a more square jaw than the typical elf, or do you want him, or is this face good enough? Obviously, we're going to end up closing the mouth. And that's something else I forgot to ask about, is your expression. Meanwhile, I'm thinking about it. Let's move this in so that it'll blend better. Will it blend? I'm pretty sure those humorous commercial videos are still on somewhere on YouTube. Okay, so the slightly squarer jaw. What we're going to do then is we're going to go ahead, I'm going to realize that I forgot to plug in my tablet. Okay. And just, fortunately, the driver's auto-load. Alright. So now, we're going to go up to inflate. We're going to use inflate for this. We're going to shrink it down quite a bit. And we're going to very gently and very lightly come over the jaw. Oh, it would help if I had him selected and not his shorts. Yeah. We need to reduce quite a bit. Yeah. And with it would come a slightly heavier cheek, just ever so slightly, to make up for what happened when he was turned into an elf. And by he, I mean my figure, not by your character. Now remember, we haven't done the hair, but I need to go ahead and use Move Topological. Move Topological, that sounds funny. And I need an expression. What kind of expression will he have? Kind of arrogant. So almost just a and then just a little bit of the upper. Oh. And down for the lower. Then a little bit of inflate, because what we're going to do is something I really should have done on the base figure, because when I made him I wasn't as knowledgeable about how things ended up looking. And let's increase the lower lip. It'll be easier to paint and to see on the miniature. And the same thing with the brow. This is more to just kind of emphasize the groove between the brow, which we're going to now make with slash, turning it way down and turning off, as always, turning off lazy mouse for anything that's not a... Oh, wait, still too strong. Turning off lazy mouse for anything that's not a fancy decoration type thing. Sorry, my brain went. So there we go. Now we are going to merge down. Right here, merge down. I always click always OK. Now the polygon density on both the figure and his lower torso thingy are the same, or close to it. It's a little bit denser at the center of the belly, but along the side here, you know, you can see it's very similar. So we're going to go ahead and subdivide it a couple times until we have 1.6 million. Yeah, that'll do. And it comes out really smooth. Well, now we got to do Dynamesh. The reason I do 768 on the Dynamesh is because it just happens that's about the best for this proportional size. Dynamesh. Bing. Undo. Now, bring the smoothing all the way up. Let's smooth over this a little bit more, because now that we've gotten the geometry better. And come over this. And then we come over here. You might hear me double tapping the number 1. That's just that it'll repeat that smoothing and get it looking good. Let's hide the body, other parts of this arm, just so I can get to this back here better. And I'm gonna smooth it, and then just to let you know how that works, I hold down Control Shift and I click, and it makes only that body part visible. I click again and it's invisible, and anything else I click on becomes invisible. It only works with groups. So once you've, like, for example, now that I have fused this the under part of the tunic, when I do it, it's weird. It doesn't quite fully match. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is his belt. So what kind of belt? Okay, lazy mouse. What lazy mouse is, I'm going to go ahead and turn on lazy mouse. I'm going to make a very long step just so you can see. When I click and I drag, see how there's a red line? That line is the line connecting the brush and where I'm actually cutting. The end result is, well, let me make it quite a bit stronger. The end result is that it ends up being a smoother cut or draw than I could do freehand. And like I said, it's great for doing decorative things, but for doing organic stuffs, like people, no. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and it's at 579. Let's give it a subdivision so we can get a nice sharper belt. So basically, it's like I have a weight here, I have a string, and as I'm pulling the weight, it's really not wanting to move except in the direction that the line is actually pulling it. So it evens out the stroke, and it makes it flow better. So now belt. We can have a skinny belt. We can have a wide belt. We can have what the Wood Elves used to wear in the 90s in Warhammer Fantasy, which was practically a WWE Championship belt. I swear, they did. I mean, let's see, do I have him in here? I has a somewhere. Boom, 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 boom. Do I have him in here? No, yeah, I do. There he is. He's not a good example. But they used to have this. Yeah. Oh, before Scarlock. Long before Scarlock. We're talking like 91, 92, when War Dancers only existed in White Dwarf. When they actually could have any weapon, their big shtick was they had an invulnerable save from all their backflips and tumblings. There's some War Dancers using great swords, using spears, using axes. Yeah. Well, most forms of belt work with chain. Let's go ahead. I'm just going to move it to standard just so I can be ready when it comes time. Let's go ahead and just give it a simple belt and then later on I'll go ahead and add, like, you know, a pouch, a sack, maybe a potion, one or two of those. Okay. Just the basic belt. We're gonna give them buckle, and now we extract. So we get back into the classics of making clothing. Yeah, extract. Accept. We draw to deselect. We click him and we draw to deselect. And then we're going to dynamesh this at 256 because that gets it nice and low but still has decent edges. Then I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to shrink this mouse until it fits in here and smooth out here. The end result is we get a bit of a straighter, flatter surface to our belt. And I'm hearing a psychopath yelling in the other room. Mom is watching Bar Rescue. And I can't stand that jackass jerk. Sorry, Pardon my French. Cussing in French is like wiping your ass with silk. For those who remember that one. The Merovingian. Why they decided to name him the Merovingian, I don't know, because it really screwed up the friend of mine's kid in history class. Now we're going to give him a buckle here in just a little bit. We're going to use a different method than usual. We're going to use inflate and just draw on a buckle that way. And what we're going to do is we're going to come in and draw where it would be. I think this comes out better than the masking and extracting version. Yep, it sure does. Then we're going to use we're going to load in the orb standard brush. So the program files, Pixelogic, ZBrush, ZBrushes, orb cracks 2, and a shrinking and a turning off of lazy mouse, and this should be decent for a very basic cut down the side to emphasize. Yeah, I need it to be here. And a bit of smoothing just to kind of even out that. Now, the reason I don't like that guy on Bar Rescue is when a bar owner is frustrated that his bar is not what what his dream was, you know, that he's changed it so much it's no longer recognizable to what his his dream and his goal was, and he gets upset. He's like, well, your dream wasn't working, so we got rid of your dream. Here, have a cookie cutter bar. It just irritated me. No, we're not going to go there. Yeah, that's good enough. Now. And hello, Christopher. Don't you love it when your mom calls you out in the middle of a broadcast you're watching? Okay, now the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to smooth out this part of the neck right here. Just a little bit, because it's a bit exaggerated thanks to the turn. Okay. Now, I'm going to draw on the top of the male shirt. But yeah, I don't like John Tapper as a human being. I will freely admit, yes, he is a highly intelligent at the bar business. As a human being, he's an asshole. Okay, that's going to be the neck hole. Now, another big question there. Do you want him to have no sleeves or short sleeves? Oh yeah, I've been painting. You could have like no sleeves and have like an armband or something up here. No, no, no. Well, you've got bracers, so I'm not sure if he's going to have long sleeves. That reminds me, I need to smooth this out. Yeah, okay. Alright, so what I gotta do now is I'll straighten out this arm, zoom in, and I'm gonna put them there. That'll give us enough room to have some skin visible between the sleeves and the bracers. Next, we're gonna do the same thing over here. Frame out, and now we can see where the sleeves will end. And now we go back down to extract, accept, draw, and just to show you why I draw like that, after I extracted, he's still masked off where the extraction was, so we undo that. And now in geometry, you're going to Dynamesh it at 256. Dynamesh. Oh, no. We need to be 128 for this. And then a little bit smaller. Yeah. And then we smooth out the inside edge of both the neck and the sleeves. We're then going to drag them because we don't want to make them too narrow, because it'll it'll change the look of the cuff. But yeah, we're gonna smooth out that. Oh no, that was bad. There we go. I accidentally went too far over and erased part of the sharp edge there. Now we go to move. No, move topological. And we're going to kind of drag this down and in. And this will help us merge it in when it comes time to fuse this whole thing back together. And okay, next question while I'm working on this. Trousers. Do you want them to be loose? Kind of, average fitting, or really, really tight? So, semi-loose, basically, quote-unquote, relaxed fit. Like your average jeans. Okay. Oh, and yes, those who watched Thursday, the girl who plays the Pastafarian loves how the figure came out. She hasn't had a chance to actually hold the miniature in her hand yet, because the game's on Wednesday. But she likes how it came out. And her roommate is getting his done Tuesday. And it's just a basic human ranger, but he's got a specific look that he wants to have, so... Among other things, since the player's African American, he decided he wanted an African American character. Which they have an equivalent in the Forgotten Realms, which is where we're playing, and I can't remember who they are. Let's shrink this, and let's go ahead and smooth the front here a little bit, because we got a little bit of a... Oh. Let's drop this intensity quite a bit, and just kind of smooth the front here. Because I know the closest thing to Native American they have is from Chult, which is Aztec meets Africa. Okay, now we're going to subdivide it a couple times until it's nice and smooth. Merge down. And then hit Dynamesh again. Then, with intensity at 100, we're going to smooth out all the seams. Okay, smooth there. And then around the front here. And then underneath. Now I'll say this, the chainmail tunic will not have as many wrinkles as the average tunic that I do, simply because chainmail really doesn't wrinkle except in motion. It hangs, it droops, but it doesn't wrinkle. Okay. And it now looks like he's actually is wearing a tunic instead of a skirt. Next up is adding on the geo for the boots. Welcome back. And Mark, it's more than just Flying Spaghetti Monster. It's also, Talk Like a Pirate Day. Okay, the boots. Do you want them just below the knee? At the center of the knee? Or just above the knee? Okay. I'm also going to, just for the sake of having some detail on them, I'm also going to add in some straps to them. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come down so that the leg is almost vertical. Let's go around to this side so we can see it. And we're going to mask off that. Which kind of renders the whole question about the pants moot, since they're going to have to be somewhat tight just because of these boots. They might be loose in actual usage, but they will appear tight on the miniature because of these boots. And now geometry Dynamesh. And now we're going to make this bigger. I have to dig into the back there later on. Now we shrink the mouse a little, reduce the intensity quite a bit, and smooth out up here. Now we're going to subdivide it a couple times till it's smooth. And I'm going to load in slash. Shrink it down. Not a lot. We want it a little bit bigger than that. And what we're going to do is we're going to come in from here and go deep in. And then smooth. Just to further the bend there. We're also going to add, bring it down, and reduce, so we can sharpen that edge. Okay, now frame out. I love how sometimes it frames out when I do that, sometimes it stays in. And in the subtool, we're going to merge down. Oh. Okay. And then in geometry, we are going to Dynamesh. Come in and down on the bottom here. Smooth. We're going to have to come in here with inflate here, just a little. Right back here. It lost a little bit of volume in there with that smooth. Okay, and then come around. There. And that is our basic boot. In our clothing, the only geometry we have to do left, geometry, not detailing, is the bracers. Put that in the trash can. Okay, yeah, this is the last one here. I'm gonna have to throw that away as soon as the broadcast is up. Okay, so the bracers, are they going to be like heavy bracers, simple leather bracers? And if leather, is there going to be anything embossed in the back? Like a personal animal symbol, weird elven runes, you know, anything like that. Leather, something embossed. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with very simple, same way we did the sleeves, but we're going to do them slightly different because this arm, the forearm, the bend is on the inside here. So we're going to start like that. We're then going to come back out here and go flat and flatten it out on this side. So the end result is it's at an angle on the arm, protecting the outside of the elbow while being cut in so that the inside of the elbow is protected. We're going to do something similar here. But first we got to get it properly upright. Okay, and then we just do that. Except, draw, frame. And then we go to geometry and we dynamize it at 256 because we need to keep that sharp edge, and subdivide it to around there because we're going to be adding a lot of detail to it. Next thing we do is we put in the laces. So we go back to orb cracks, but we switch it to Z sub, lower it quite a bit, and shrink the mouse. And we're going to draw a couple of laces. Oh. Now we need a bit here, and then one here. We're then going to go to inflate. I'm going to try something here. I'm going to lower it quite a bit. And we're going to inflate 1, 2, 3, the tip. Not enough. And yeah, there we go. Then we're going to back to the orb crack, going to switch to add again, and we're going to draw in the seam between the sides. Then we go back to sub. Yes, the orb cracks brush is weird that way. And we're going to do it like this. We're going to draw the middle one first, then this one, then this one. Then we're going to inflate. 1, 2, 3. Inflate the tip here, here, and here. 1, 2, 3. Go back to orb cracks and add and cut in. There. That's the basic lacings for the bracers. Now we need to come up with what's going to be on the back. And what we're going to do with it is it's going to be supposedly embossed, so it's going to be cut in a little bit bigger and not quite as deep. Okay, the thing about Elven runes is that nobody can agree on what Elven runes look like. Dwarven runes, everyone agrees that it uses the Elder Futhark, which is the Old Norse alphabet. Elven runes all look different. Tolkien's Elven runes looked like cursive writing. I never liked it. How about this? How about we put in a little bit of knotwork on the back? Okay. What we can do is just start here and just draw down, down. It's too big. So. This is so that we can keep an eye on where it's supposed to be. And then we go to masking and invert. Okay. Now, make that 12. What we're going to do is we're going to start off okay, there. Down. And there, we have a little bit of knotwork on the back. How does that look? Okay, it's enough to where it has a detailing, and yet it still has a more of a foresty look. Now, what I'm going to do for this one is going to be slightly different. This one is going to have a leaf pattern. Now, is he Wood Elf or High Elf? Because that'll actually change what I put here. It's a lot of practice, and it's a lot of understanding how they did that to begin with. Imagine doing that with a hammer and chisel, a tiny hammer and chisel, into steel. Engraving it like that. That's some seriously hard work. So, it's technically a high elf. Okay, so okay, what we're going to do then is going to make sure we have it there. There. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to just draw. Actually, let's make this a little bigger. more of an Elizabethan, not Elizabethan, but a later period vine. And then that's going to connect to just simply an orb. The longest part of this will be the male and the hair. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and mask off everything that's not part of the male. And then I'm going to clean it up afterwards, because it's easier to clean it up than to do it right the first time. That's the trick. Don't worry about getting it right the first time. Worry about being able to clean it up afterwards. Because what'll happen is if you try to do it right the first time every time, well, you'll get frustrated a lot. It's like the old saying, it's better to beg forgiveness than ask permission. Yeah. Now the exception is down here on the arms, because with the arms, I can literally just do what I did before. Make sure. Alright, now this is going to be selecting not just the arm, but also the trim at the end. And I'm also going to be doing the same thing here. Let's get this up right. Zoom out, move up. And then select about there. And just for the heck of it, let's get this part of the arm too, and this part of the leg. We're going to have to trace the neck and the... But for right now, we're going to go ahead and just select as much of this as possible. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to match what we did before with the angle there. Alright, now we're going to select the head just so we can get the head out of the way. A lot of the head. And I'm going to use the mouse. And we're going to trace along the neck at about the same width as we did. And then I'm going to come in here and we're going to erase that. Now, let's actually hide the head and brows so I can get in here and do this properly on the neck. There, and then come back around. And then come back around this way. If you accidentally just kind of brush, just tap it like that without actually drawing on your masking, it will blur the mask, which is a nice effect, especially for what we're about to do, but it's not what we're looking for, because we don't want the underside of the tunic to be affected. And then keep going. Alright, now we come around the back. And we come around the back. Coming around the back side as we mask. We're coming around the back side as we mask. The reason we're masking, we are not going to be extracting. We just don't want the chainmail to be taking place, to be, crossing over where the trim is or the belt. And now we go ahead and let's zoom in. And I'm going to shrink the mouse a little. And now it's time to start cleaning up under the belt and above the belt. Alright, now and what I'm going to do is, once I've got the mask finished, I'm going to deflate what is currently unmasked. So it will kind of sink in just a bit. And then start drawing on the mail. Okay, excellent. Now we do the top. You gotta keep a close eye on it as you're doing this. It does not have to be perfect. If you get perfect, fine. Good enough is still smaller than most resin printers can still do. at this resolution at the very least. The result would be a tiny little gap or overlay that won't even register, if you know what I mean. Okay, let's go ahead and draw that back in place. And now up here. Erase that, and then come on down low. We are going to give it one layer of blur. So we go to masking. Actually, no, we're going to do a grow mask, because it grows it by half a step. Deformation, inflate negative. Just a bit until it looks like there. Now a little bit of soda. Now I'm going to import, or go back to standard rather, go up to lazy mouse and turn it back on, decent lazy radius, and a lazy step, 0.7. What this does is, that's how often it will, 0.7 means it'll duplicate the press every 0.7 sizes of the cursor. So I import, go back up to desktop, 3D printing, meshes, sculpt. This is actually under alphas over here. Alphas, male 2. Okay, so I'm going to make it bigger. I believe 75 is the size that seems to work best. Let's try it. Well, first of all, I need to make this bigger. And then that's way too big. So let's drop it to 45. That's actually not quite big enough, so let's make it 55. Yeah, that's good. Now what we do is we start off down here, and we're just going to follow along . That way, and then we're going to do the same thing continuing around. Now the thing is, as you get near the edge, you have a problem. And that is that it measures when to hit the button by the distance on the screen, not the distance on the item. And real quick, let's hide the bracers. Okay. And now we just drag it again creating more links. Now we do the same thing but above it. It's just going to be a lot easier because I don't have to worry about that arm. And then do. No. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing up here, but it's going to end. No, I need to do it a little bit further turn. It's going to end at the belt. And from here we go down. Basically we're just going to go around and make these loops all the way around the surface. And this is the single longest part of doing this particular figure. And it's something I really do need to do and work on a way to do it faster. Because as many characters wear chainmail, the faster I can do this, the better. Okay, so the lower half has the mail going. Let's add in one last. There we go. And if we zoom out, oh, we can still see the pattern, so that's a good size for the chainmail. And let's zoom in. And we're going to start this time actually at the sleeves. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually go back to orb cracks. And remember, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, it's 6. Increase the intensity. And we're going to draw on a cut for where the sleeves will be, because that's where we're actually going to be changing directions with this sleeve, with a chainmail. Because your chainmail actually changes direction at the sleeve. Alright, you see the pattern that I've got it here, where they're kind of going to the side. I'll show you in a minute how chainmail bends and doesn't bend along a clear axis. And so they always changed the pattern at the sleeves. And go back to standard. Okay, now I'm going to start over here. And like I said, just keep going. Try to get straight lines, but if you can't, try to follow the pattern of the garment that it's on. In this case, it's that sleeve. Now you'll notice that there are points where this pattern matches up with the pattern on the chest. But that's just pure happenstance. We're going to do the same thing here, but we're going to be pulling it down instead of side to side. And there. And the end result is this basically compensates for the shrinking that we did earlier, because it's pulling out for these links. What? There. Let's hide the head and brow. And then we'll start over here. I have no idea why those links appeared in micro scale a few minutes ago. Now, let's go ahead and try and fill in some of these gaps here. Yeah. Frame. Yeah, that's looking good. It's looking like actual male. And now we're going to draw across the body. And draw them S's, because that's what they kind of look like, as S's or G's. Or this represents two links per. And now we go up to here because we've already gotten a gotten to that edge of the sleeve. And back around this way. We now hit the bottom of the other one. And just kind of draw these in. Okay. Frame out, and there we go. That's our male. And hello, TJ. I actually made it, and I can show you how I did it in a little bit. Yep. Now, the next thing, here's the thing, Mark. Do you have either Photoshop or GIMP? Photoshop or GIMP. Basically an image editor. Because this is what's called an alpha. Okay? What it is a black and white picture that black represents areas that aren't affected and white represents areas that are. Okay. Next, oh yeah, looks like I missed a couple areas. Let me go ahead and just. Oh. Just to draw in and fill in gaps. What it is, with the alpha on, it only affects the area that the alpha, underneath the mouse that the alpha is affecting. And it's focal shift to 0. And what we're going to do now, we're going to draw on the area for the hair. How long is his hair? Are we talking shoulder width? Are we talking just slightly longer than shoulder length? Are we talking slightly longer than belt length? That's good. And then slightly longer than shoulder. Okay. Basically what I did was I simply drew a circle, I erased a circle out of it. So I just had a bar. I cut it in half. I put two like that. No, I cut it in half and I faded it in from one side to the other. So it was dark here, fading to light. I then made a duplicate, rotated it 180 degrees and put it here. And then blurred it. The end result was that alpha that you saw. That created these chainmail links. Okay, so let's make sure I didn't get any there. Okay, good. Now we're going to extract it as usual. Except, draw, and then, oh, no. Draw. Now we're going to Dynamesh it. And then we're going to start by inflating the back so we have more geometry space to work with. Start very lightly on the back just to kind of pull it out, and then a lot more. And then we're going to smooth very lightly this area because I got a wrinkle in it. Okay, then we're going to zoom in and very lightly smooth the front and that little curl that's left in front of the ear. I'm assuming it's all pulled back and just only the shortest little wisps are coming forward. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to divide it a couple times, delete lower, and we're going to dynamesh it again. That's so that we have a nice even distribution of polygons up here in the back. And then we're going to subdivide it again, because now we're getting ready to actually draw in the locks. Don't ask why. No, that's not what I wanted. I wanted this. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're about is that about good, or you want it a little bit longer? Okay. Slash is 90% of how we do hair. Once we have the geometry in place, we basically do a lot of slashing. Hack and slash. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in from here very lightly and then dig in deep. That'll help define that it's like a lone lock. And then it's going to come back from here. We're just going to kind of dig in a couple spaces there. Going to make it bigger, and this is going to be our primary locks. Okay. And then from here, no, it works better if I'm actually like looking at it. Let's start from this side. Okay, it's going to come down like that, and then finally, let's move down. It's going to come down like that, and then just the bottom ends connecting like that, continuing like that, and then continuing like that. Now the reason we save the hair for last is because, as you can see with this chainmail, it overlaps some of that. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to shrink this a little and reduce its intensity to 10. And we're going to draw in some secondary locks. Just one or maybe two per major lock, and sometimes fading out like right here. We want most of the intensity on inside the locks instead of coming from the individual hairs to come from these locks. As you can see, if I loop, you can see the silhouette right here. These smaller hairs are not important, at least not yet. And it just helps us define direction. Again, this is You know, a lot of long hair flowing back relatively neatly, you know, not hugely bushy. And what's going to end up happening is we are now going to come in and switch to add and go back up a bit, but reduce the intensity. If you go too far with add, it starts having problems, and we're going to draw on top of each of these locks. And then hitting a 1. This will help make it a bit easier for the customer, which is you, to paint if you want to paint it. And a little bit down here. I'm going to do the same thing up here. No, because I accidentally closed off there. Let's do it this way. And then come back a bit. And fade away, and then come back in. And then come back in. Then we come back from here. And here. No. That one came too close. I'm going to try and stay as close to the middle of these as possible when drawing this on. And you want to use slash on add so it's nice and sharp. And then just a little there. And then we come in and we do the rest of it. And it's just very lightly, very gently. Because what happens is, I've said this many times before, if they prefer to paint it with a wash, it'll sink into the grooves between. If they prefer to paint it with dry brushing, then it'll catch on the ridges. Those are the most common ways to paint hair. Now frame out. And the hair's done. All of our basic geometry is in place. It's basically time left to detail. Let's go ahead and bring things back on so we can see. I think one detail we really should add, let's go ahead and back over here, let's give him a belt pouch. How does that sound? Okay, so we go to, this is an inflate mesh brush I've created. Insert belt stuff. We're going to give him a pouch. And we click and drag. And we look and we see, no, it was too far out. So we go back. Double click here. And on depth, it says 46. That's why. Let's make it 10. It's mostly embedded. And we click and actually what we need to do is we need to click down near the bottom. Because it'll be mostly sitting on the belt. Okay. And we're going to split masked parts. So that will be a different piece. And then we're going to use the move brush. Not move topological, move, because we want to grab the whole thing. to kind of position it. Pull out bits and bring it up against the male again. Pull it out just a little. Pull it down. And pull it back like that. Shrink this just a bit more because we want to try and move this so it's into the body. It's fused. We don't want to have a huge gap there because it'll make it difficult when printing. And now that we got that in place, we're going to geometry and we're going to subdivide it a couple times so it's nice and smooth. Okay, so he's got a belt pouch now. Now we need to go in with these boots. We need to give them a little bit of wrinkly love. And so we're going to start with a Z sub at 12. And we're going to draw in wrinkles onto the back of the knee, the sides, the back and sides of the back and fronts of the ankle. Okay. We're going to shrink this down and we're going to just kind of draw in some wrinkly bits. Oh, no. And we're also going to give some faint slashes to the backs of the knees. And of course the back of this ankle. And then the front of this ankle. And then the top of this toe. And then Z add, drop it down to 8, and drop it down in size quite a bit. And we're just going to draw over top of these wrinkles to really emphasize how sharp they are and to make them, again, easier to paint. Printing and painting are usually hand in hand, but sometimes making something easy to print can make it boring to paint, or you can't quite grab what you're supposed to on in the detailing. So we want to try to toe the line between these. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, let's move it back over. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now here we really kind of have to make certain that we pull this out a little bit harder than usual, because when we put these in, we accidentally took out some of the mass of that ankle. Okay. Now we're not going to bother with the ones on the toes, simply because the toes are a lot simpler and a lot less oomph. Frame out. Okay, I really need to soften that one. Yeah. Now the last thing we're doing on his boots is we're going to inflate so we can add in the ankles. Ankle up here. No. Too small, too large, and not intense enough. Ankle up here. And down here. The outside of the ankle is lower than the inside. That's something to remember. And it relates based on the shin, not the foot. Okay. I'm thinking we're pretty much done, except... Do you want anything on the sword? It's right at 8. I can squeeze it in. I can put something like right here, or it would be too hard to see on right there, but yeah. I could put something at the very tip, like an initial or a basic design. Yeah, because we want these Patreon sculpts to really look, you know, have some oomph. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do something very similar to the not work there, but it's going to be a 2 square instead of a 3 square. And it's going to be right there. Let's go back to where there's orb cracks. Let's shrink it a little. And it's just going to be start off here. Oh yeah, I gotta turn off. I don't have laser mouse on. Oh yeah, I see why. Subtool. Select the dang sword. Yeah, there we go. And basically just be, let me divide it one more time. Because the more polygons the better. Oh. No. Yeah, there we go. And something similar over here. Oh, too close to the tip. There we go. Frame out. And this is our rather heroic looking half-elven fighter mage. The only thing left to do actually that I've just noticed is I really should kind of come in here and refine the facial features. They've gotten smoothed out a bit after all of these. Oh, I still have to do the hands too. I can't believe no one reminded me to do the hands. Alright, let's gonna come up here. There. And there. And now we go to the inflate tool because that's our primary tool for doing these hands. Okay. Let's... Oh, no, it needs to be on 10, not 12. Boo. boom, 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 boom. And then just a bit of a blur over because these fingers are mostly straight. We don't need to worry about turning sausages into fingers as badly. Just gonna blend over top of them. And then kind of put that right there. And now the sword hand. Oh, I know one thing I forgot to do. Auto masking. Okay, good. I turned it off. Now, I'm going to hide the sword so I can see the hand. And that's going to be... Don't do that to me. Sometimes the driver gets a little wonky. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Smooth the bottom. And hit 1. Then hide the base too. That's in the way. Have one there and one there. Oh, I need to inflate that. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to just add on the knuckles for the other fingers. And we're going to very gently smooth in between them. Again, he's a warrior mage, so he doesn't necessarily need the most delicate of fingers, even if he is an elf. Okay. Now we're going to right there. Okay, frame out and make things visible again. Okay, that's pretty much it. That is our heroic elven war mage. And it only took me a couple minutes longer than usual. Oh well. Alright, so give me just a second to get some of this and some soda, and then I'll merge it all together and simplify it. Or not simplify, but unify it. One thing to remember, if you have a figure that has either scales or chainmail in any amount, more than just like a small patch, when it comes time to do the dynameshing and the decimation, you really need to use a bit more polys than you would normally. Okay, it's now one subtool. We can ignore the subtool menu for the rest of the night. And let's go to 124 resolution Dynamesh. Oh, they should get us around 2.5 million. 2.788. Oh well, I was close. I'm gonna zoom out. And once again, it's all fused together, but we can't see any of the joins. And now we go up to Z plugin, and I hit this little circle here in the upper left hand corner of the menu, and it pops it over here. Decimation Master. We're going to put it at, we're going to try it at 50K instead of 35. Let's see what it does. Oh. I'll say this, he didn't necessarily end up the most covered in detail miniature that I've done. I mean, some of the ones they did for the dragon thing would qualify for that. But he's got some a really nice pose and some really nice attitude to him. And 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99. Bing! Excellent. We didn't have a hiccup in the decimation. Yay! Reordering. And it ends up as 100,000 triangles. Come on, let's see it. Let's see it. Reordering, writing file to disk, and then it'll suddenly jump to the decimation version as soon as it finishes writing. Bing! 103,000. Okay. But what I was concerned about was that making sure that the male ends up being clearly defined on the surface. Because if it's not, that chainmail will look wrinkly. It'll look more like wrinkles. Excuse me. And it came out beautifully. Okay, so now we go to export. Patreon minis, new. Amarin Fighter Mage. And he is saved. And just as a, just to show off, I'm not actually going to save the movie, but I do like occasionally doing this. I'm just going to go over here, turn these off. And then just hit turntable, just to let him spin around. Actually, let's delete that. I forgot to do one thing. Two things. One, that. And two, frame. Zoom out a little. And now we'll do it. Turntable. As it spins around and it shows you all of the details that have been added and the wrinkles and the proportions and his wonderfully arrogant expression. So, time to go ahead and come back to the regular camera. So I take it you enjoy your figure. Waiting on the line. Okay. Well. Oh man, Long. Did you manage to at least get to see the finished figure, Long? Okay. So in about another between half hour to an hour, I'm going to have the files ready to send to you. If you can send me a private message in the Discord with your email address. I'll be able to send you STL, OBJ, and a quick render. Sound good? Okay. Alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and log out now for the evening. It was a nice sculpt. It was a traditional character, nothing unusual. You're not a Pastafarian or anything. But it came out very nicely, and it's the kind of figure that that's the kind of thing you really need to do constantly, is you need to do figures that have the most common kinds of details. The wrinkles, the scales, you know, and then work on things like the detailing that we did on the back of the bracer, especially that Celtic knotwork one. So I am going to go ahead and holding up that hand. As soon as I see it up on the screen. Yeah, I need to refresh the page because it's taken so darn long. I am very, very lagged. Okay. Holding up my hand. And that is going to be 5, 4, 3, a 2, and a 1. Good night, all.